What's up, guys, and welcome back for another EVE Online video. In this one, we'll be talking about making every type of planetary interaction, planetary industry, every type from P1 all the way to P4, with the intent of using it for a variety of manufacturing and things. I'm going to preface this by saying that this setup is not meant for volume, but instead for full coverage. If you want actual specialized focus on a certain type of P2, P3, P4, then you would definitely just manufacture everything in a certain way, and you'd set up your process plants to focus on that thing. But for the purpose of this video, we're just making everything. So the goal here is to have access to every type of P1 through P4, and having the options to basically manufacture whatever we need, even at low volume. Now, I'm still in the transitional period. I'm moving from basically fuel block PI focus over to this setup for variety manufacturing. So I'm going to show you in this video how I have this whole thing set up, and this is only done with 3 characters, so 18 planets total. We'll be focusing here on the actual main, as it were. The 2 alts that are a part of this this setup are essentially just they're using extraction planets to just do 12 of the 15 P1. And then what'll happen on this tune is, once it's done kind of burning through a lot of my stockpile of reactive and precious metal to make mechanical parts, this character will essentially create the 14th or extract the 14th and the 15th P1, which will be my precious metal and my reactive metal. The reason I haven't actually started those extraction plants yet is because I have a stockpile of those. So the idea is that 15 of your 18 planets across 3 characters will be doing a single P1 extraction, have a single planet for each one of the types of P1, and those numbers are important. So let's go and run through the actual numbers for each tier of PI. So there are 15 types of P1, and there are 24 types of P2, 21 types of P3, and 8 types of P4. Those numbers are going to mean those numbers are going to come into play when we start setting up the process planets, and I'll show you how I have mine set up as well. My P4 planet is actually still being routed because I'm adding more factories to basically increase more. I have more CPU available there after the 8 high-tech factories, so I'm basically adding more mainframes and more integrity drones to that. So what you see here actually in this crane is 3,500 of each of the 15 types of P1. This is basically an input. It's actually comes out to be like 3,508 to fill up a launch pad. So that's what you see in this PAKU right now. So on the PAKU side, we have the next wave of inputs going, and this is what's actually being used at the moment in here. And we can just kind of drag this stuff over and fill it up as we need, because we're doing two launch pads here. And so this is actually the output. So this is where all the P1, I just reset all this morning and moved everything around. This is where all the P2 output is going to be stored. And so what you do essentially here is, when you're ready to move the P2 and feed the P3 planet, you take all this stuff and move it over to the P3 planet, which, let's go and look at the customs office for the P3 planet. We don't have anything loaded in the PAKU yet. We'll wait for a few more rotations before we do that. But here we go here. This is the P2 input. So this is what this planet is using right now. And we're also running a 2 launch pad setup here. And this is the current output. So this is where all of the P3 is actually stored. Same idea. When you get a stockpile here, you'll drag all this stuff out and you'll feed it into the P4 planet, which we'll go and look at the PAKU for that. And this is actually running 3 launch pads. So this would be the output, and we just cleaned this out this morning. And then the second one is input. We got to add some more input here in a little bit. And then this is actually a specialized launch pad that has 17,000 plus 18,000 of bacteria, reactive metal, and water. And the reason we do that is because 3 of the P4 require P1 input, but this stockpile right here and here will last a long time. So you just kind of keep that stocked individually. So let's go and look at the actual planet here for the P2. So like I said earlier, there is 24 types of P2. So we have essentially one factory dedicated to each of the types of P2. So as you can see here, everything is routed, everything is individualized. So every one of these factories is producing one of the different types of P2. And this is the output and then the input here. Pretty simple. And then we'll go ahead and look at the P3 planet. Now this planet is also running 25 or 24 factories rather. It's running 24 factories. I'm trying to maximize the amount of resources I'm using, so I want to make sure that I'm maximizing the power usage or the CPU usage on each of these process planets. So what is happening here is I have one factory for each of the 21 different types of P3, but I'm doubling down on data chips and gel matrix biopaste because on occasion I do like to produce nanite repair paste, so having additional data chips and gel matrix biopaste is really nice, and it just kind of fills out this whole planet. And then obviously we have the input launch pad, which everything goes into, and then we have the output launch pad, which everything goes into once it's all done. I like splitting up the input, the output, because it allows me to, maintain and, kind of piddle with the input and not necessarily go out and grab the output until I'm ready to, grab like a full 10,000 cubic meters on that. So go ahead and look at the P4 planet. This is the P4 planet. This one, so these 8 right here that are running are all of the 8 different types of regular P4. I'm adding actually 2 more integrity response drones and also 2 more wet wire mainframes. That's just because those are on the higher end of the value, and also I use a lot more of those in kind of the more focused manufacturing I'm doing, and also it just kind of fills out the usage. The high-tech factories are a little bit different than normal factories, as they use more CPU than power. So it's kind of like the inverse is true. And when you're looking at doing a high-tech planet than you would if you were doing like a P2, P3. So we have very little power usage, but we have maxed out CPU, as opposed to on a regular just P2, P3 planet, where we're maxed out on power, but we still have CPU left. And that basically just comes down to the fact that high-tech factories are just really crazy on CPU. So once all this is routed, this will get routed once we actually drop more P3 into this planet, in a few more hours or whatever, and then we'll route these, and then it'll be just basically automated. So the idea behind all this is we, throughout the day, and the 3500 P1 that we feed into the P1 planet lasts a pretty good amount of time. So I always try to like have a full load in the actual Paku, and then also have the backup also ready to go, and then just kind of monitor it. Now, like I said at the beginning, this is not high volume, right? But what we can do is the P2 planet essentially will run 24 hours a day as long as you keep it fed, because your extraction planets are going to output anywhere between 4,000 to like 9,000 plus, depending on the density and how the planet's kind of operating. So in a single day of extracting, you're going to get multiple input iterations for this planet. So you'll essentially be creating all the P2 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And then what I usually like to do is I like to run it for like a few days. I like to stock up a lot of P2 and then just kind of blitz through the P3. And what's really interesting about this setup too is that if you want to make structures that and all the structure components require P4, essentially all 8 P4, and then regular minerals. With this setup, even though it's not high volume, you can actually still make several structures a week with the output on this. And then for what I do a lot of like MTUs and structure components, so I'm actually able to create a lot of that stuff, and I don't really have to worry too much about not having a certain type of PI. Because let's say like you're wanting to make like gel or nanite repair paste, or you want to make fuel blocks, you can kind of stop and kind of pull stuff out at any point in the pipeline and use it for manufacturing, because at the end of the day, you're touching every type of P1, so you can save it if you need to. You're touching every type of P2, and you can save that stuff and focus that stuff. And the same with P3 and P4. I like the variety here. I like the control. I also just like to kind of piddle around with PI most of the time. And so a lot of what will happen today is I've already loaded up this planet, and as this P1 kind of gets consumed, this stuff will just start getting dragged over. And then once it's all done, once this is pretty much empty, I can go in here and drop another. And you could go in here and drop like 10,000 of each, and the Paku will hold it. But I find it's a lot better to just kind of like let the 3,500 of each kind of sit there and just drag them over, so you don't have to split stack in the Paku do that as little as possible. Now, as you can tell, I'm sitting in a station. I'm docked right now, but I'm on view outside. And since I'm docked and viewed outside, I can manage the Paku without even being in space. The only reason I need to go into space is to pick stuff up and drop stuff off, which is really great because it just allows you to really maintain the risk. And what's interesting about PI, and I think the reason I like PI a lot, is because once you have it all set up, you're kind of just, other than like the tax you pay for import export, you're kind of just generating that passive income, generating that ISK, and it allows you to just have a nice sustainable income as long as you're consistent with it and keeping everything running. Now, the last thing I'll go over, I showed you how I set up all of the process planets, and this is my extraction planet right here for oxygen. And this is, all of my planets are set up essentially the same way. I think I'm actually running 10s here for everything. This is the only planet that hasn't really been updated. This is still running 11. But on all my other extraction planets, I'm basically running 10 factories with a single connected extractor. And essentially you're just going to be doing that for all 15 types of P1. What's interesting about how this is set up is we only have one link going from the extractor to the actual hub here. But the reason why you want to only run like 10 is because it would give you enough headroom on the power to move this extractor around to kind of chase the heat map if you needed to. So let's go and look at this. What are we making here? We're looking at noble gas. Let's say you want to come in here on a day where you're resetting all your extractors, and you want to move your extractor to be in range of a little bit more white space, right? Now, the purpose of actually only having a single link connecting your extractor is you could essentially decom this extractor, leaving all your planets in place. And this is why we actually leave ourselves a power overhead on these extractor planets, because then we can actually go in here and we can kind of move this extractor around, and then we just single link it again to the launch pad, and we just set it up, and now we're in range of everything. And since we have that power overhead and we have that resource available, we can essentially kind of move in a pretty good radius around where our factories or stuff are set up. If it gets really, really bad, then yeah, you might have to actually reset all your factories and maybe go to the opposite side of the planet. But really, I don't really ever have a situation where I have to do that, since I leave myself the option with that power overhead and the way that everything is connected to move that extractor around. So every extractor planet for all 15 types of P1 is set up the exact same way. I just use a single launch pad and then like 10 factories, and then the extractor with 10 heads, and you're good to go. I set them for a day so that the sub cycles are 15 minutes, and then I look for the raw. I want the entire cycle to produce as much over 1 million raw as possible. But there'll be some situations where you might only get 900, but 900,000 to like 1 million is like the sweet spot for your day cycle. It's really going to depend on like how much P1 you have stockpiled and everything. So that's how that is all set up. But other than that, I figured I just wanted to kind of share this little thing that is going with you. I'll probably do a little bit of a follow-up once we're kind of through several days of iteration here, and kind of do some more talking about the pipeline, and kind of the total output per week is probably something I'm going to try to like report on, so that you know exactly how many P4 is actually coming out in a 7-day period, which I know, I mean, I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but I know that I'm able to actually create several Athenors and several structures a week. And that's all basically dependent on like, how often I run my structure components and things like that. But even just making MTUs, I'm able to do a significant amount of those every week as well, depending on like my, my mining and my material stockpile as well. But I thought this was really interesting, kind of just showcase the how crazy it can be to just use basically 18 planets to do every type of PI. I hope you enjoyed the video. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and if you want to support the channel, consider becoming a channel membership. Also, if you haven't gotten your 1 million skill points, use that reference code, that link in the description on new or existing accounts. So that'll get you some skill points to get skilled up and get some PI alt popping. But thank you for watching, and peace out.